Okay, so 277, here we go. Let's do a come around, see what we can get from people instead of me just telling you answers. We got a lot of time on our hands today. Most of these that had two fractions, you'd want to start off by cross multiplying. So if you didn't do this yet, why don't you just start to work on the one that's going to fall to you? So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You know, check out the one that'll be yours when it falls there. But for most of these, we're looking to cross multiply when there's two fractions. If there's three fractions, you're going to have to look at all of the bottoms, pick out a LCM, cancel all those bottoms, and just like deal with whatever's left. Shot at one.
W1 and D2 on the top and the W2 on the bottom.
That's correct. On top, in any order, there's a D2 and a W1, however you put them. The bottom has a W2, and that is victory. 2. That's correct. W1 and D2 are on top of D1. That's true. 3.
2S on top of V1 plus V2.
It is. 2S is on top of V1 plus V2. 4.
2S over 2 minus V2.
That's one possible answer, yes. We could go two different items subtracting. A 2S on top of a T that then is subtracting a V2 just to the side of a fraction. You could also do a 2S minus a V2T all on the top with just a T on the bottom. What caused that difference? Yesterday we saw there was something that sometimes we could either do it or skip it, and it didn't really matter, it was distribute. So if you choose to distribute, you're going to get one answer. If you don't choose to distribute, you might get another answer, but they're both perfectly valid answers. 5, you got maybe a harder one than cross multiplying because you had three fractions. Are you okay on that one?
Yeah. Capital R, R1 over R1 minus capital R.
That works. So top has a capital R and an R1. The bottom has an R1 minus a big R. You're also in an unlucky suit. Would you rather take on an easier one?
I didn't do it.
Okay. Why don't we give you... Maybe give a run at try to cross multiply 17.
What's 5?
See what it looks like. Anybody comfortable taking over on 6?
I'll try.
Go ahead.
Actually, is this supposed to be a fraction?
It'll be a fraction.
Yeah,
It'll look a little
I don't
bit.
have a
It
fraction.
looks a little bit like what we just got on 5.
Actually, I don't have a fraction.
Okay. Well, if you don't have a fraction, let's grab anybody that has. Do you have something?
R1 times R2 over R2 plus R1.
That works. Top of 6 will have an R1 and an R2. The bottom will have an R1 plus an R2. Or an R2 plus an R1. Either way, we could go. 7, what do you think?
RG on top of G minus R.
That works. RG on top of G minus R is true. 8, shot.
Is it RS on top of S minus R?
It is RS on top of S minus R. 9, shot. Cross multiply on 9. See where it can take you. I'll come back in a little bit. 10.
Alright, 2V over I minus 2R.
That's one possible answer, yes. So you could have a fraction, 2V over I, minus a non-fraction of 2R. You could also have one monstrous fraction with I on the bottom. The top would have 2V minus 2IR. Those are both true answers. 11 has 3 items. Were you okay on 11, or you want me to pick you a different one that cross multiplies? Okay, how do you feel? Pick anything from 14 down, but not 17. While you think, how about if somebody jumps in and gets us 11? Sean?
Is it, PQ over Q plus P?
It is PQ on top, Q plus P on the bottom. That's true. 12. Do you have a shot at that one that had 3? Why don't you pick another one? Are you ready to pick yours? Well, we're waiting for Emma to pick one. We took 17 out of play. Do you have another one from 14 down that looks better to you?
I'll do 16.
16, okay. So not 14, or not 16 or 17, but shoot any other one you want. What do you think? Which one are you gonna shoot on? 15? Okay, so 15, 16, 17 out of play. 12. Anybody take a shot at 12? It'll be kind of like the same size answer as we had on 11.
I'll try it.
Okay.
QF. You said
QF is the top.
You said 12.
12.
QF under or over F plus Q.
That's close. Anybody else have QF over something different? Well, good job.
QF over Q minus F.
That's true. You volunteer all the time, so I felt like I'd go with that. We don't get a lot. We don't always get that. So yeah, QF on top, and then Q minus F on the bottom. 13. Do you have a shot?
R equals NE minus capital I, capital R,
Uh-huh.
IN.
That's all true. Yep. NE minus IR is all on the top. IN is on the bottom. I don't. Did somebody pick 14? I don't think so. So 14 just up for grabs. Anybody have 14?
Is it IR over E minus R?
IR on top. What did you say for bottom?
E minus R.
That's close. Somebody have something close to that on bottom? Something close to E minus R? Somebody try to get me that one. It is IR on top, and it's something close to E minus R on the bottom. We'll just let that hang. 15. Somebody was doing 15. Yep.
H equals S equals 17 over 72.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Depending on how much stuff you distributed, you could do this a few ways. The book for me for 15 had an S that didn't distribute and an M that also didn't distribute. And then in parentheses, they just had T1 minus T2. I think her answer, she said you distributed in like the M's maybe, and that's fine. So the S didn't go in for her, and then she had an MT1 minus MT2 in parentheses, that's fine. There's a bunch of different things you could have there depending on how much distributing you were in the mood for, but that's a win. 16, somebody was hunting 16, were you 16? Yep, you working still?
Yeah.
Okay. 17, you in the hunt?
E equals ER over
That's correct. 17, we got ER, and that's a little r on the top. The bottom has two different r's, big R plus little r. And I should have probably said that also on 14. 14, the r on top was a big R, so 14 was an I and a big R on top. The bottom is something close to E minus an R, but not quite. One possible mistake on 14 people could make is that's an I, not a 1. So if you lost sight of whether that was an I or a 1, that could have affected why we haven't hit 14 quite yet. 18, we're just up for grabs. Open the floor to anybody. So, boys.
No, which one?
18. Anybody have a shot at 18?
E capital R, capital E plus E.
That's really close. Top has a little e and a big R. The bottom has some stuff with big E's and little e's, but not quite exactly what was said there, but very close.
E over R over E minus.
The top's E, little e, big R. The bottom has big E minus little e. 19. Anybody a shot? 19. Somebody work it, get it, let me know. Anybody willing to shoot 20? Let's get that, we'll loop back. Checking in on you. Which one were you working?
Number 9.
9. You have it yet or need a little guidance?
I'm just working on
Okay. So we need 9, we need to spot the mistake we were close to on 14, and then I think it was 19, 20 are lingering. Anybody get them?
I mean, I could.
Go ahead and get us one. Get us any one of the three.
14 I R, like I times R
Yep.
over E minus little r I.
Yes. The bottom of 14 needs to have a capital I, and I wondered if that was the one where I wondered if maybe people thought they had a 1 and just didn't write it, but it was an I, so it has to like be there. So 14 should have on top a big I and a big R. The bottom has a big E minus a big I times little r, and that's true for 14. So 19, 20, I need 2 customers to go get them. Get them.
Oh, this is so wrong. SO minus SR for 19.
There's not an L, so
SI, I want an S.
I don't think there's not an I either. 19 just has S's, A's, R's, and 1's. So you must have mistook the 1 for something else, and that has you scrambled. If you had thought you had an L, something weird happened there. You've not?
Yeah, R equals 2b minus IR over 2i.
That's true. 9 is 2b minus IR all on the top, 2i on the bottom. That is a win. So we're hunting only 19 and 20.
We could try.
Go ahead.
19.
Try 19.
It's probably really wrong. S and then in parentheses.
No
1
parentheses.
No.
Oh wait, no, maybe you could, maybe you could. Go ahead, read your parentheses. Maybe you distributed or didn't distribute and they did.
Okay, S in parentheses 1 minus R over top of 1 minus RN.
Yeah, that's true. They chose to distribute, but you didn't have to, so I cut you off too soon. That was a false alarm. So 19, you could have an S that wants to distribute into 1 minus R. Or you could have distributed, and the top is S minus SR. The bottom has 1 minus an R to the nth power.
I had it, I just put it
20 is a less crazy answer.
There's 20 A minus 7I over capital A.
No, there's no 7 there, so something got
Or no, not
copied.
7. A minus SI over S.
That's close. There's not an I, that's a 1.
That's A minus S.
If you turned it into that, then you're really close. 20, if you have A minus S on top of an S, you're really close. That's very much in the neighborhood. Does anybody have something really close to an A minus S that's on top of an S?
Is it A plus S?
That's colder.
Is it A minus S on top of a negative S?
Okay, it could be that. It could be an A minus S on top of a negative S. It could also be an S minus an A on top of a positive S. Either of those would have been okay. We have all the answers public now. Anybody need a quick repeat to just analyze your accuracy while we're sizing up whether it's right or wrong? And then let's go with stuff people just didn't, couldn't, wouldn't get.
Say
Something.
20.
Which one?
Say 20.
20. So 20, I'm going to start off already cross multiplying. So 20, the S would multiply the 1 minus R, and that would equal an A. Are you okay with that? Okay, we're chasing the R. So this is a question where if you want to distribute, you could, or if you don't want to distribute, you don't have to. If we do distribute, it would be S minus SR equals A. Then who would get moved first?
The S is
This S. How would you get that S out of there?
minus.
Subtract. So this would still have a negative. We'd have SR, and that would be A minus S. Then if we want to get the R alone, we'd have to divide by
S. Or negative S.
negative S, and that would get that out of there. That's odd choice.
Yeah, I did that, but I didn't put the negative in there.
Another thing you could do is when you divide by a negative, it flips the signs. So I think the book changed all the signs around, but that's still the same. Question about that, Pat, before I'd erase that? Okay, the other way you could have gone would be not to distribute the s. Leave the 1 minus r and start off by
A over S.
divide a over s. Then the negative r would have to sit tight while you left this fraction and get the 1 out of there by subtracting. And then if you want the r completely alone, you'd have to change all the signs. So this fraction would become negative, and that would be an add 1. That's just as good of an answer. Any path there is good. Something about 20. Anything else that people didn't, wouldn't, couldn't, just not happy?
5.
5. So 5 is one of those ones with 3 fractions. So we're going to have to pick an LCM. What would we pick on 5 for the LCM?
R1,
R1 and R2. So when you do the canceling of where the big R was, you'd get R1 and R2. After the equals where the R1 was, you'd get
R2.
yeah, R2, big R in some order. And where the R2 was?
R, big R, R1.
R1 and a big R. Are you with that move to start?
Yeah.
We're trying to get the R2s alone. There's 2 R2s. So our first thing, if we're solving for R2, is to get them all on the same side. So R1 and R2 are already alone over there. Let's bring R2 and big R with them by subtract. The R1 and the big R, it can just sit there and wait. And then how do we make the move from having a couple R2s to a single R2?
Factor.
Factor. So we take off the R2.
R1.
So R1 minus big R. And then to get this R2 alone, you have to divide. This is going to be on the top, and this whole thing goes to the bottom. Good on that?
Yeah.
5, 6, 11, 12. People, when we took the turns, all avoided those. All 4 of those go the same way. They'd all involve the same kind of LCM, the same kind of canceling, the same kind of get stuff on the side, the same kind of GCF factoring. Those are all the same style question. I would almost guarantee one of those would make the test with the 3 fractions, because there was quite a few in the homework that did. Anybody else 277? Any kind of questions about what's going on with that?
14.
14. So if you cross multiply, we get an I that maybe should distribute R plus NR. And we get an NE. Are you with that move?
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to get at the little n, which is in 2 locations. So distribute or no? Distribute, because unless you distribute, you can't really get at that very well. So IR, INR, and NE. You with that?
Yeah.
Is that new land?
Yes.
Okay. Then where would you go from there?
Put it on the same side.
Yeah. Who would you move to get stuff to the same side?
IN.
INR can move there by subtracting. Then we're solving for n, so what will you have to do?
Get rid of these.
GCF,
And then
and then we'll end up with a fraction where this is going to head
down.
down. Is that enough of a shell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the back.
Sure. Anybody else on this 277? Anything that's given anybody some troubles? So if that's done well, send it. If it's gradually improving, keep it till it's as good as it's going to be, and then send that, whether that's later or tomorrow or whenever. We're into 6-9 today. Good news on 6-9, this is the easiest section you've had in a long time. I don't know if it's the easiest thing we've done this year, but it's probably is. If it's not, it's close. So 6-9 is going to be a very quick lesson, just using the space behind me and nothing really complicated about it. Tomorrow would be a day, there will be an assignment due, but chances are you'll be able to do this before you leave the room. There's a lot of days in history that I've checked this assignment just right, wrong, and made it worth points because it strictly represents effort. If you try, you're going to get every problem right, and it will not take you long. So try that. I'm not guaranteeing I'll check that right, wrong tomorrow, but I'm just saying I've done that quite a bit. I have an answer key in my folder that I just saw that reminded me of that. So tomorrow's homework kind of catch-up day. I'll give you a sheet today that'll be due Friday, today being Wednesday. So a sheet due Friday. If you're a basketball player Thursday night going to Trinity, maybe you want to just do the sheet tonight because I think this first homework may be done before you even exit the room. But sheet due Friday regardless of what you're doing. We'll take a quiz on Monday. There's a bigger sheet due Tuesday. I'll give you that sheet also that covers the whole chapter. Test on Wednesday, that's like our next week, is mainly just reviews and tests after I teach you this one fairly simple thing. Question about upcoming schedule? So today's called variation. There's two kinds of variation. There's a thing called direct variation, and in the homework section and on a quiz, there'll be a heading that says this is the direct variation section. There's another section that'll be called inverse variation, although it's possible that they may call this indirect in some books. I don't remember what our book calls it, but I call this inverse. So basically, there's some kind of relationship between x's and y's. There's really only, I guess, three things that could happen. If I change my x and my x goes up, the y could only react in one of three ways. Either the y could also go up, or the y in response could go down, or I guess it's not going to have a name today, but the y I guess could stay the same, but that's not going to be a thing. So one of these means if x goes up, it makes y go up. The other one means if x goes up, it makes y go down. Which word do you think means which thing just by knowledge of the English language?
Inverse goes down.
Inverse means if x goes up, y goes down. Direct means if x goes up, y goes up. Can anybody name me a situation in the world that if one thing goes up, it makes another thing go up? Two things that are related where one causes the other one. And if one thing goes up, it makes the other thing pretty much have to go up. Can you think of something in your life that is like that? You got some fun.
This one is kind of stupid, but if your grade goes up, that probably or should means that you're learning, so would your knowledge.
Okay, that's fine. If your grade is going up, that probably means your knowledge of the subject is going up. That's probably true. Somebody else play with us. You got something.
You said inflation.
So that doesn't really have two things in that story, but I mean, you might be able to craft a story that's like that, but that didn't really mention two related things. If the amount of time you studied went up, your grade would probably go up. If the amount of hours you worked went up, your paycheck would go up. Make another one where I don't guide you.
Great.
Score goes up.
If you spend more time shooting foul shots, your foul shot percentage will go up. Trying to do one without me.
That's the same as.
That's the same as what I just did.
Yeah.
You just
Better
plagiarized
words.
my idea.
I changed the words, not plagiarism.
Well, I'll just let that rest. See if you can think of anything inverse. We have about 2 minutes to think that over. But here's what we're going to try to do is create an equation that looks like this. Y equals some number times x. What they're going to do is give you the y, they're going to give you the x, and your job becomes figure out what this missing magic number is. So my answer for this is y equals somebody times x. My answer for this is y equals somebody times x. So think about, if we know the y and we know the x, what algebra would you do to get the k figured out? Divide in which order? Because dividing is picky about order.
Divide the x.
We know the y, we know the x. Divide the y by the x. So whatever the y number is you're given, divide it by the x number that you're given, and that's going to give you your magic number. So on this, if you do the y number divided by the x number, it is 5. On this, if you do the y number divided by the x number, not a 2. Ha, tricked you.
Oh, it's half.
It's a half. Or go decimal as, either way is fine with me, whether you go fraction or decimal, I don't care. Question about the direct variation? Just take the y number and divide by the x number. So if you take 10 and divide by 2, that's where 5 came from. If you try to take 5 and divide by 10, that's going to go decimal or fraction on you. But every time, just take the y number that you're given, divide it by the x number that you're given, and you're going to have it. Inverse. Can anybody tell me a story about inverse? Okay, that would work. The more time you spend on your phone, the lower your
Battery will be.
battery will be, and so will
Let's
your
go.
grades, and so will your parents' happiness, and so will a lot of other things probably. Your social life, your whatever it may be. The inverse is one thing goes up, the other thing goes down. So we're trying on these to make an equation that looks like this. Every answer is going to be y equals some magic number on top of x. Y equals some magic number on top of x.
Oh.
It's just a question of how we're going to go get that number. So if some other human tells you the y and they tell you the x, and your job is to go figure out this k, how would you do that? You just multiply x times y. So if I tell you the x is 3 while the y is 4,
Whoa.
you just shoot me back a 12. If I go mean and do a decimal, well, I mean, you bust out your calculator if you have to, but you're just gonna multiply. 6.4. Generally speaking, the math community will frown on decimals inside of fractions, and for today, I'm gonna say we don't care. If you have a decimal inside of this inverse variation equation, life will go on, just leave it alone. I'd rather not have a fraction in the fraction, but if you go decimal and fraction, we can live with that. Basic story, by the time the quiz comes, have these straight in your head. Inverse means you're dividing for what you're writing, which means to solve, you always do the opposite. So if inverse means a dividing problem, to get there, you're going to have to multiply. Direct variation means to make a problem that's
Dividing. Multiplying.
multiplying. So that to get to that point, you'll have to divide. Just be careful on your division, because division, it matters what order you get the numbers in.
Hey, you gotta flex that.
There's 10 minutes left. There's something like 15 homework problems. You could do that in 10
Joey,
minutes if you wish to do
I
that.
will get it done someday, okay?
It's in the book already,
282. What we're working here is a 1 to 10 and a 19 to 26.
Don't well
So
me.
1 to 10 should look like this, y equals somebody times
Look in the
x.
booklet.
Then the 19 to 26 should look like these, y equals
Well,
some
why'd you
number
put that
on
in
top of
I did
x.
it.
So,
Tell him.
quickest homework in a long time, that's all I got other than giving you sheets.